You are at Rants Incorporated, where I rant about whatever my $10 a month plus patrons want me to rant about. You can get one of these by being one of those. This one's for No Zoner, who says, "Hey Digi, sorry in advance if this rant prompt isn't actually rant material, or if a rant for this already exists. Could you rant about consuming media critically? What are some of the pitfalls you see critics fall into when they evaluate a given work? And would you have any tips for one looking to build the most understanding out of their next viewing session? Alternatively, rant about the American Top 40 could be from any era." So, I think that I've come to understand this a little bit better after making my neurotyping chart. Because I really do think that different people view media in terms of the way that they think, or in terms of a way that someone else thinks and has, posited as the correct way to think, and they have believed that. And not necessarily that it's like one person, but even it could be society as a whole. So, for instance, it's very easy to suggest that perfection needs to be a lexical idea. That something needs to be cohesive, it needs to not break any of the rules it establishes for itself, that, it needs to be believable in all ways. It needs to be, if we're thinking about a film, for instance, all of it needs to be mistake-free, essentially. And that a movie which is mistake-free and also extremely emotionally impactful is like the ultimate movie. And this is basically the idea of suggesting that it needs to have complete left and right brain appeal to be perfect. When, in reality, most people are going to connect with one element of the movie or the other, more so than the others. Mike Stacklasa of Red Letter Media once referred to himself as a structure guy when talking about Tremors. He likes movies that follow the rules of movies, that follow dramatic structure in the correct way, and he's extremely attentive to detail, extremely attentive to, shot compositions, use of props, what looks realistic, what looks fake, what is good dialogue, what makes sense. He notices those things on first pass viewing. That is why I put him in the very, left-sided category, the highly lexical category, very lateral as well. As you can see from the way that he makes Star Trek references on the fly, while talking about stuff. But over on the other side, I would actually put Jay Bauman as an impressionist. And even though he, too, is of the opinion that movies, should be held to this standard of quality, that, they for a movie to be quote-unquote good, it needs to be well made. He nonetheless gets a lot of enjoyment out of movies that are not well made. He likes movies for what they are about. He likes movies because the concept is interesting, because something about the impression that it gives speaks to him personally. And when he talks about movies, he usually has a difficult time pointing out the specifics of what appealed to him, and more the vibe he got, the tonality of it, what did this story feel like? And so, which is what makes them a great combination, in spite of the fact that, in many ways, Jay sublimates himself to the idea that the movies he likes are not good movies per se, because they are not perfectly crafted, even though they might have more emotional impact than other movies that are perfectly crafted and therefore appeal to him more. It's very difficult to comfortably say that one type of thing or another makes something good. So when it comes to consuming media critically, I think that people need to first and foremost be open-minded to the fact that other people watch stuff differently from you. They're not watching it in the same context. Like, maybe you see everything in theaters, they watch everything on Netflix, on their couch, or on their phone. Maybe, they watch YouTube on their couch, or, while they're at a job or something like that. You can't predict the context that you are going to be enjoyed in, or the context that your audience is going to have consumed the work in. So, you can't make assumptions about the audience. Don't make assumptions about what they think is good, what they think is bad. Don't make assumptions about what they will have experienced as compared to you. Lead them through your entire experience and your entire opinion and all of the justifications. It doesn't have to be long-winded. It just has to be a matter of covering your tracks, essentially. And, this is something that a lot of YouTubers kind of find it annoying to have to say things like, this is just my opinion. But you can find more creative ways to convey the fact that something is just your opinion, or you can, find ways to write your script that just address the idea that other people will get something different out of it than you. So, if you are somebody who doesn't care much about the visuals in a show, but you can tell that the show has great visuals, or that other people have gotten something emotional out of it, you can say in your video, I appreciate that this is a show that other people have gotten something emotional out of, but personally, I didn't see it. This is what I saw, the mistakes that were made here, and here, the dialogue here, and here that didn't make sense. It prevented me from getting that emotional catharsis that you people over there appreciated from the show. And the people who feel something, they, as opposed to saying like, oh, who cares about the details, you're a nitpicker, just say like, I appreciate that, maybe this show might have, some kind of technical flaws, but like those things were not noticeable to me, or, even in learning them have not diminished my appreciation of how much I felt when I watched this show. So, that appreciation for other people's mindsets is one thing that I definitely think needs to be added. And then also, like, to look at whatever you're looking at as holistically as possible if you're going to make judgment calls about it. And this is where things get kind of difficult, because it's like, again, I think it's one thing to say, like, here's my perspective, here's what I like in media, and here's how well this thing matched that criteria. To look at something that way, I think, is very fair. To look at it from the perspective of, like, what is this thing trying to say, and what does it, and does it do a good job of that? In order to really, like, make any kind of reasonable claim about that kind of thing, you need to know everything. You need to not only, like, understand the show fully, but also understand the creator fully. And you can make videos where you have suppositions about these things, or your own meditations, your own ideas, the connections you feel like you might have with the creator, without stating that these are, oh, the creator must have felt this, he must have been trying to go for this. But, like, if you're going to make those kind of statements, you really need to have, like, a fucking level of understanding and confidence where you have, gone out of your way to really parse through things. And I think that a lot of, younger or newer critics, they really underestimate how much goes into creating something, how many angles there are to look at it from. If you haven't actually done any kind of work that is similar to what you are critiquing, whether it be professionally or just even just understanding the concept of how it is done, even just watching behind the scenes shit, honestly. If you understand how things are made, then you really can do a better job of parsing what's going on in what you're looking at. Why are certain elements of it great or failing, and, what could have led to those problems production-wise. Understanding that kind of stuff makes you able to just make much more interesting statements about something. Like, it's one thing to say, like, oh, the animation in episode 16 isn't as good as the animation in episode 15. And, that might be fair to say. Does that, like, significantly diminish the impact of the show for you? And if so, then, I guess that's fine. You can note that fact. But, like, to really hold it against the show, you could consider what might be the cause of that. Let's say that there was some kind of, strike or some kind of natural disaster that happened around that time, and the episode couldn't be finished, or the animators were overworked or whatever. And maybe that episode, in spite of the wonkier animation, has other things going for it, and the animation really, it's not that big a deal. Like, I mean, it's just, if you think through it all the way, if you really look at the whole work holistically and try to not judge it, not put too much focus on any one piece, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Because people tend to fixate on tangible details. They tend to look at the first things that strike out to them about a work, and then they make a lot of judgments, and they base the rest of their understanding on that first thing that stuck out, when what they should be doing is making sure they understand everything so that they have a full, perspective on the thing they're talking about before they talk about it. And it can be difficult to do that, but that is what I would encourage you to do if you want to be a critic. I mean, I do think that a lot of people on YouTube are not really interested in criticism as an art form. They're interested in the idea of like presenting information through YouTube videos as entertainment for an audience. And there's a lot of channels that are just like reading Wikipedia articles that are plenty popular that are not even attempting to look at something critically. It's just like, here's a thing, here's what it is, here's what people thought about it, or possibly here's what I thought about it, without any attempt to dig into it. And for me, that kind of stuff is not worthwhile, but it's still popular, so really you can just do whatever the fuck you want.